I think it's kind of good to hear a little bit of the story of a living tree, probably one of the biggest oaks in Europe. There's a few in England that are about the same size, you know, depending on where you put your measure tape. Yeah. But it's over 14 metres around. So that's 10 people it takes to kind of stand. A bit of the background to this. It's Ola and I visited this tree for the first time, at least for me, it was the first time in 2002. So 21 years ago, and the tree was in fantastic health. I mean, really fabulous health. The leaf area, the density of leaves, the size of the leaves, the extension growth was just amazing. And I'd been here kind of a couple of years in between time, and it had an iron band around it, which was from the 1960s, completely hollow, and you'll see that. And I was on the way somewhere else, and I thought, I've not been here for a while, so I'll stop by. And I was so shocked because the crown was pale green, really thin. The size of the leaves at the outer parts were really, really small in comparison to the rest, and certainly in comparison to the trees in the surroundings. And I rang, something's going on with Kvilleken, you need to do something. You know, and in 2006, an arborist secretly had cut the metal band around the tree, but then someone sent a welder in, so you know, someone who kind of puts it back together without really looking at how tight it should be or where it should be. So after that conversation, there was a conference a few months later with quite a few people here. So David Lonsdale and Frank Rinn and Mike Ellison, lots of people from some different countries. And I kind of, you know, asked the question, could we take a trip here whilst everyone's here? Because this is such a famous tree, and I'd like to have a discussion about what's wrong with it and what we might be able to do with it. So we spent 2 days here, and it was tomographed from bottom to top. David Lonsdale and I dug soil samples out from the tree. I took leaf samples and sent them away, soil samples and sent them away. We had such fun. I mean, we did everything that you could possibly think of doing. But all of us were kind of like, you'll see what I mean, but how do you kind of understand the biology and the biomechanics of this tree? Because it's been in the 60s, it's had this band around it. It's grown with that for 50 years. And what's caused the declining health? The first thing that we asked them to do was to put this fence up here, because people were kind of going in from different directions, and that even if compaction wasn't really an issue, the stones, you saw the big piles of stones as we were driving. There's very little soil here, it's all stones. So compaction of the soil wasn't really an issue, but there were very few fine roots in the soil out from the tree. We basically, as you would in a situation like this, I think we came to a conclusion that there were several things that had happened which had caused the decline of the tree, and it tipped the balance. The first being that the band was cut and then reattached, probably too tightly. But that could have just also have been that the trees continued to grow and it's got to that point where it's squeezed, because the cambium has grown over the band. You'll see some of it still there in places. Then it had mildew, and had mildew, which was unusual in this area. Then it also had 2 years of tortrix and a drought year. To be realistic, to know exactly what caused this decline is always really challenging, isn't it? You know, I think you could just as well stick your finger in the air, but those were the kind of logic. So we decided to remove the band. So we took off the band and replaced it with an alternative system. John Hartle put in a system which I think is a really neat system actually, because it's adjustable and it sticks out from the tree. And we used the tomograph to identify where the live areas were for the bolts to go in, so that they would be able to sit securely. And as I said, they're adjustable. We used a kind of organic folial seaweed spray on the leaves to try and kind of boost. It seemed like they were a bit low in manganese, and that was one of the things that was pretty much all we did actually, because mulching didn't really feel that was the issue, because the soil was in really good condition. The soil is as old as the tree, if not older here. It's never been ploughed. It's been pasture all the way along. You can tell that by all the stones. I think we actually removed a bit of dead wood, which is unusual in a tree like this, just because it was sitting above the only live branch. So what we were worried about was if that fell, if it took the only live branch with it. So that was a small amount that was actually removed and put back inside the trunk of the tree in order to kind of encourage this, you know, a bit of, if you like, natural mulching. We've had lots of other people visit afterwards, and it's really interesting that everybody has masses of opinions about this tree.